We're here today to talk about Mission Grow, which is our agricultural mission in Kenya that we operate through Seeds of Change. And we're privileged to have our partners on the ground here for a week of strategy meetings. And so they graciously agreed to do this lunch and learn. So allow me to introduce Paul Seward. He is the founder and managing director of Farm Input Promotions Africa. And David Priest, who's the country director for Kenya. Mission Grow has done some amazing things over the past 4.5 years, including reaching over 500,000 individuals in the realm of food security. And so Paul is going to talk a bit about his background with agriculture, and David is going to talk about how Mission Grow is helping to extend the vision of food security in rural Kenya. So we will have a time for question and answer afterwards, so please save your questions. And please welcome, on behalf of Mission Grow, David and Paul.
Thank you. Thank you, Alicia. Can everybody hear me? Very good. First of all, thank you very much to Seeds of Change Foundation for hosting us here this week. This is my second day in Sioux Falls, and I'm learning. We're here to learn from you, and it's a fantastic experience so far. And secondly, thank you very much for coming to this session to learn from us as well. My name is Paul Seward. I'm the Managing Director of Farm Input Promotions Africa, which is a not-for-profit company in Kenya. And Dave Priest, my colleague, is going to talk a little bit about what Mission Grow is doing. I'm going to give a background to FIPS and talk about our work in general. I just want to talk about a little bit of background to FIPS, the challenge facing us, our approach that we've developed, and give some examples of our impact. First of all, FIPS Africa is a not-for-profit company. It's a Kenyan company, and our vision is food security for all farmers in sub-Saharan Africa. Our mission is to quickly and cost-effectively improve the food security of smallholder farmers through improving their access to the appropriate farm inputs and information on their best management. And as we're a not-for-profit company, we raise money for our work. We may raise money from donors such as Seeds of Change and USAID and others. We have a number of core values which guide our work. The first of one is passion. We are passionate about helping smallholder farmers to give them the knowledge to improve their lives in a way that encourages self-reliance and independence. Our second core value is inclusion. We work with every farmer in each village that we serve, regardless of gender, age, or wealth. And we give farmers a choice of inputs and practices so that there is something for everyone. Our third core value is learning by doing. We believe in empowering farmers to practically learn by doing with inputs on small plots on their own farms with little risk, and to enable them to choose what works for them. We believe also in how to keep it simple and small. We know that small modifications to farmers' practices can have large, lasting increases in agricultural productivity. We work with farmers to modify their practices, which are easy to adopt, rather than introduce new, complex, inappropriate technologies. Another critical core value that we have is humility. We can do things that farmers cannot. Farmers can do things we cannot. Together, we can make great changes. And this has been adapted from Mother Teresa. We treat every farmer as our equal. We spend time with farmers to understand their priorities and constraints and work with them to design interventions to provide solutions to their constraints. And we share our credit for our work, for our achievements with all our partners. Honesty is our last core value. We, as an honest broker, believe in giving farmers a choice of any one input, enable them to choose what is best for themselves. We are committed to transparency, integrity, and accountability in all our operations. We work in 3 countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and we're advising in other countries such as Nigeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. And why do we do our work? What is the reason? Well, we've been going around South Dakota, and we were in Iowa yesterday, and we've got farmers who are all very well developed, but these are typical farmers in Kenya. We've got large numbers of small farmers producing very little on poor soils, using local varieties of their crops, which are susceptible to disease. This is a typical farmer. And we've got millions of farmers. So in Kenya, we've got about 4 million smallholder farmers. And land size is 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres if they're lucky, sometimes half an acre, as little as 1/4 of an acre. And we've got huge constraints. Farmers, first of all, are complaining they don't get any extension services. So there's no knowledge or information around. Because of that, there's a lack of awareness of new varieties. The soils have been degraded. They're very, very poor. Inputs are rarely available at the village level. Majority of farmers live below the poverty line. But we've got fantastic technology available from research, from the private sector. We've got wonderful for example, new varieties of corn. Corn is the #1 preferred staple food in Kenya and Tanzania. Look at that. That is where we want to go. Fantastic technology available. These inputs have been developed, but they're not accessible to farmers. How do we create demand amongst these large numbers of farmers so that they buy increasing quantities of seed and other inputs to improve their food security? I've been working in Kenya now for about 25 years, and during this time, I've been helping to develop an approach to do this. We haven't followed any textbook. There's no textbook to what we are doing. We are developing a page every day of that textbook. And it's still a work in action, but we've got an approach which we've condensed down to 5 pillars to our approach, which are all integrated to address this problem. The first one is we start with the farmer. The farmer is our client, our customer. We need to do a farmer needs assessment to identify the constraints to improvement of agricultural productivity at the farm level. The second thing is, having understood what the farmers need, we develop partnerships. We develop partnerships with private sector companies, with the Ministry of Agriculture's extension services. We work with donors such as the Seeds of Change Foundation to help us to develop and implement this methodology. We work with self-employed village-based advisors. This is the new extension service for Africa. Okay? We identify hard-working farmers in the villages, and we teach them how to promote, how to advise farmers, and they ultimately become suppliers of those farm inputs to farmers, and together with the inputs, they provide advice. The fourth pillar is that we believe in improving the whole farming system. Now, as we've been going around here, we've been seeing farmers are growing corn and soybeans. But in Kenya, we've got farmers growing a great diversity of crops. Okay? So they're growing corn, and they're growing beans, and they're growing cowpeas, and the pigeon peas, and cassava, and sweet potatoes, and bananas. We believe that diversity is the key for food security. So if one crop fails, then farmers can fall back on the other crops. And the final pillar is that we have a small pack approach. This is our small pack. Okay? It helps every farmer in the village to experiment with the inputs in the right way. And we've developed little simple tools to get the plant population right. This is a planting string for corn, okay? To show farmers the distance between the rows and where the kernels go along the row. Very simple things, changes. This string is helping to increase productivity 400% in one season. Here's some examples of our village-based advisors. Dave's going to talk more about the village-based advisors and what seeds the great work that we're doing together with the Seeds of Change Foundation. This small pack gives every opportunity, each farmer the opportunity to try in a small way with little risk. 1 ton of seed can get to 40,000 farmers in a small 25-gram pack. Now, conventionally in Kenya and in most parts of Africa, many organizations are working with doing a conventional one demonstration in a village. Okay? So this is the village. And you've got one farmer benefiting from this. And all the other farmers are expected to learn from this demonstration. And very often, they feel very jealous. And they say, well, I can't possibly do the work on that lead farmer's farm. So through this small pack, we've got hundreds of thousands of small pack. Dave's going to explain what we've done in Kenya together with the Seeds of Change Foundation. So we provide advice to go along with the seed. Okay? So little packs of fertilizer, appropriate to the farmer's needs, composting, improved tillage to collect more rainwater, deeper tillage to allow the rain to get in the soil, and a planting string. We talked about the planting string earlier. So the advice goes along with the inputs. The seed alone is not going to work. Here's an example of a little bit of deeper tillage on this farm to allow the rainwater to get in. Now on the left-hand side, you can see there's a hard pan in the soil. And the water is not getting into the soil, but it's running off. And as a result, the crops will fail. And on the right-hand side, you can see wonderful maize with a bit of deeper tillage, using a tool that we've developed called the spring djembe. Dave will talk about that. Okay, I don't want to take too much time, but we are offering farmers a choice of inputs for all their crops, improved varieties of corn, of rice, of sorghum, of millet, finger millet, whatever's in their farming system. Legumes such as beans and soybeans and cowpeas and green grams and pigeon peas. So for whatever farming system we have in Kenya and Tanzania, we've got the solution. We also work with livestock critical work. Dave will talk more about that. And through this demand creation, farmers learn on a small way and they say, wow, I can do this myself. Okay, and they come back to the village-based advisor to buy the inputs that they need to improve their food security, increase productivity, improve their lives. And you see this farmer in the beginning. This is what we want to achieve as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. We're doing the same thing with beans, of cassava. This is a diseased cassava variety, and we're going to that. This shows in one village the different inputs that can be promoted, multi-crop dissemination, improvement of the farming system. Chickens. Chickens. If there's one thing that all farmers have in sub-Saharan Africa, it's a chicken. And they're owned by women, and they're all dying of the terrible Newcastle disease. So underpinning all our work in whatever areas we're working, we vaccinate the chickens to stop the disease. As a result, the women who own the chickens have got more chickens to sell, they've got more meat, they've got more eggs for nutrition, and the village-based advisors make money from selling seeds, from doing chicken vaccination, from selling seeds, from growing improved varieties, from producing seeds at the village level. This is rice in Tanzania. They're selling vegetable seeds. They're growing trees. They're selling trees, tree seedlings. And this is the blue chicken. When I show this, everyone thinks we're crazy or we're gone colorblind. But this stops the number one killer of chickens. It's not a disease, it's a predator, the eagle. So the eagles come in and steal most of the chicks before they reach maturity, and coloring the chicks with a little paint can stop the eagle. Okay, if you want to learn more about what we're doing, this is just an overview. You can follow us on Facebook. Anybody here on Facebook? Everybody's on Facebook. You can get us on Facebook at Farm Input Promotions Africa Limited. You can follow us with the latest news. We're on Twitter at FIPS Africa. Instagram, we've just joined Instagram at FIPS Africa, and we have our website. So anybody interested can go in and find more information. I'll stop talking. Dave will take over now to talk about what we're specifically doing in Machakos and Makueni counties with the Seeds of Change, with the support of the Seeds of Change Foundation. Thank you for your attention.
Great. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, wonderful. So I don't need my intro. I'm going the wrong way. No? Am I? This is his slide. I'm going to. Sorry. Okay. So in terms of the Mission Grow history, people ask, how did we end up working with Seeds of Change and with the generous support of Jeff and the poet people? What I've been told, the story I've been told, is that Jeff had a visit to Makueni, which is a county in Kenya. They were mostly looking at schools that the foundation was supporting. And let me try this one. Okay, and this is what he might have seen. So Jeff actually looked at the maize. He's a farmer. And he might have seen a lot of farmers growing crops like this, where the maize was poor. This is very common. You get crop failure 2 or 3 seasons out of 5. And a lot of farmers really struggle. They may not even harvest anything. And the last photo there is beans. Farmer practice, they might be digging, like this lady here, and digging in a very shallow way that they're not getting much. Or they might be using the ox plow, where you have this plow that they attach to the oxen. And as you can see, it doesn't go very deep. So the rainfall doesn't go very deep into the soil. And they may only be digging with the plow 2 or 3 inches or less. So Jeff got in touch Jeff came back to the States and got in touch with the Pioneer Seed Company and said, how can I help farmers improve their maize in Makueni? And Pioneer in the States got in touch with Pioneer in South Africa, who got in touch with Pioneer in Kenya, and they said, come and work with FIPS. So that got us in touch, and Jeff kindly asked us if we can find a way of working with farmers in Makueni with an initial project, phase 1, that was aiming to work with 21,000 farmers. And then later on, and that 21,000 farmers, we were working in this green area here. And then that went quite well. And then we were asked to expand and try and reach another 70,000 farmers. So we expanded down here and up here. And you can see yellow dots across here. Each of those yellow dots is a village-based advisor. Each of those yellow dots is a village where we're working with about 300 people. So between the 2 programs that Mission Grow is working with, we're working with about 91,000 farmers. And if each farmer has a family of 6, that's about 500,000 people. We have a field structure where we talk about different things. We talk about village-based advisors. I'm going the wrong way. Village-based advisors, or VBAs, if I talk about them, and each of them works with about 300 households. Then you might have a network coordinator who is supporting 15 to 20 village-based advisors, and then that goes up to other layers of management and eventually the office and boring people like me. And to date, we've achieved 77,864 farmers between the 2 programs, been reached with improved varieties, been reached with small packs of different maize varieties. We've helped 19,000 farmers try improve tillage methods under this program. We've helped 2,600 work with vegetable gardens. We've worked with mango demos for mango trees for about 5,000 farmers. We're working with crop protection, grain storage, and chickens. We've vaccinated about 1.7 million chickens. And if each of those chickens is vaccinated twice, let's say, that's 600,000 chickens. And if they're each sold for $5, it's worth about it's almost $3 million worth of chickens that have been kept alive for small farmers, for women in these areas, which is a lot more just from the chickens than the whole project is worth. And we're only halfway through our project. So from chickens alone we're doing. And then the other thing is dairy. We're beginning to look at dairy in this area. How do we help farmers get more from their cows? And so far we're working with 150 farmers on dairy. This is a lady who's succeeding from small packs. We're also working with we've also adapted the plow. So the original plow we took to try and dig deeper, we removed those plates and we ended up with something like this. And then we stuck on a pointy hard bit of metal that's made by this person in the village. And we call it a spring plow because that pointy bit of metal is actually the suspension spring of a car that's been chopped into pieces. It's hard metal. And we call that spring plow. It gets double the depth compared to the normal plow. And that makes a big difference on crops. And they plow up and down the fields like this. And you remember these farmers who we talked about earlier. They don't have a lot of production. This same farmer, it's the same farmer, he's wearing the same clothes, even the same season. He did part of his land with an improved variety and the spring plow, and that's what he's got. This same farmer, same season, same planting time, she's managed to go to there. This farmer, she's managed to go to here. And this farmer with beans, he's got a lot more beans from his crop. This is simple things. This is an improved variety, better way of digging, and maybe a better way of applying the manure in the planting line instead of broadcasting atop of the field. Very simple things are achieving these differences. Here's an example of another farmer succeeding, Francisca. And she says, there's a little quote from her, saying, "Before FIPS, even with good rainfall last year, my family harvested only 2 bags. That's 8 bushels of maize. And she said it was only 1 or 2 months before they'd run out of food and the family had to go to the market to buy food. And they didn't have money to buy food, so they were really struggling. And she said that they needed 16 bushels of maize in order to survive through to the next season. Now, after FIPS, she then bought 4 kilos of Pioneer seed. That's enough to plant half an acre. And she harvested 24 bushels. That's up from the 8 bushels she'd been getting before. She did it with the deep tillage. She got 24 bushels. And then she had spare food. So, and this farmer, and you see a small child on the back, that's changing their life. You see other farmers here, and these are in fairly low rainfall areas. Again, the whole area is low rainfall. All of these farmers have improved. All these photos were taken this season. They were sort of taken during July last month. And they're getting 32 bushels, 30 bushels, 12 bushels from very small areas. This is in slightly higher rainfall areas. You can see again, and each of these farmers has a similar story. We're getting improved production of the legumes. Up here we have, this is an improved bean. These are green grams. It's a mung bean, I think you call it here, and other green grams and other crops. This is a crop called the pigeon pea. It's a legume, but it grows like a tree in over 2 seasons. That's about 8 months. We have 2 seasons a year. And this is the way it grows locally. You've got a few pods up here, but not much. And just by doing the improved tillage, you can get to this, where one plant is giving a huge amount of food. And they cook this, they eat it. That's the main protein in their diet. We've been working with vegetable gardens. We call this micro-irrigated vegetable garden, or MyVeg is the term that we use for it, where farmers are digging a pit and putting a plastic lining in it and then transplanting in vegetable seedlings. And then from there, they can get vegetables like this. And then these women farmers who would normally either just go without any vegetables for their family, because this is a dry place and it's very difficult to grow vegetables, they can put 1 20-liter can of water in this twice a week, and then they can get vegetables. They can feed the family 2 or 3 times a week. And then some of them are even selling it. This farmer here in the bottom left, you see she's expanded from just 1 pit to now she's got many, and she's selling the vegetables on the market. This other one on the bottom right, she's earning $10 a week from selling vegetables as well as feeding her family. Chickens. I said 1.1 million chicken vaccinations we've done under the 2 programs. And I think yeah, I said I've already talked about the value of that. This is a farmer who, now that she can keep chickens alive, instead of having 5 or 3, 10 chickens, she's grown to a very large number of chickens. And as Paul said, chickens are owned by women. If you help the men with the cash crops, a lot of the money gets drunk or gets spent on a party or it gets spent on something shiny. If you help the women to increase their own asset base and their own income, then money gets spent on school fees, it gets spent on food, it gets spent on other important needs for the children. Here's a success story of Beatrice Ngunge, who's succeeding with chickens. And what she said was, in February 2015, she had a debt of $120 because of paying school fees and borrowing from neighbors and other things. And she only had 4 chickens. By 2015 October, she started vaccinating chickens and learning good poultry management from the village-based advisor in her area. By a year later, her flock had grown to 54 chickens, which she sold. She cleared all her debts and she got $100 saving that she invested in buying day-old chicks of an improved breed that we've been promoting that works very well in free-range situations in the village. And she sold 65 chickens in March this year, and she used the money to buy an in-calf cow. And that's the cow that she bought from chickens, having started with only 4 chickens. And her quote that I heard was that, "Through rearing these birds, I've been able to buy an in-calf cow. I am now a woman who owns a cow. It makes me very happy, you know. And she's thinking about the milk she's going to get, the money, she has an asset. And owning a cow it means that you're a person, it means that you matter. You're now a moderately wealthy person if you own a cow. So she's very excited. Here's Joseph Wambua. He'd, in 2014, July, he said he was harvesting 8 bushels from an acre, which is nothing, 2 bags of maize. You can't survive on that. 8 bushels. His family, in July, he harvested 8 bushels. By September, they'd run out of food. And they weren't going to harvest again until February. So he reduced the family diet to 1 meal a day. You know, and kids, when they're going to school, they're not going to study well if they're eating 1 meal a day. They're going to be hungry. Everything's difficult. You can't work hard on your farm if you're eating 1 meal a day. He tried a small pack in October of that year, and also learned about spring plow from the village-based advisor and started vaccinating chickens. A year later, he sold a lot of chickens. He bought seed. He deep-tilled the land. He used the money that he'd got from the chickens to deep-till the land and pay for an oxen to use the spring plow. And then by 2017, he got 36 bushels from that same 1 acre, going from 8 bushels to 36. He said, now I never go hungry. I've even got spare food to sell, and I'm making money from it. And as I said, these are not complicated technologies. These are very simple things that farmers just have never had the opportunity to learn about. Here's one of my favorites as well, Mary. She was saying in January, in the whole of 2015, she harvested 4 bushels of maize from 1/4 of an acre. She's an old lady. She struggles. And she was having to survive by hoping that her sons in town might have some money and might send her some money. They didn't send her enough money, so she had to go and work on other people's farm and do weeding or harvesting of beans or other things. And then she started learning from the village-based advisor in her village how to use the spring djembe, about the new varieties. And she bought 2 kilos of pioneer seed. And she used the spring djembe, the hand way of tilling the land. And from the same 1/4 of an acre, she got 16 bushels. 16 bushels isn't a lot, but to her, that was everything. And the most important thing to her was that now she's able to send money to her food to her sons in town. So she'd gone within 2 years from begging from her sons, who didn't have jobs, they didn't have money, they were struggling in town themselves, in the city. And now she's sending them food. And that to a person, being able to send food to your sons is a really good feeling. So those are my sort of talk about the things that we've been doing with Seeds of Change. Paul mentioned thanks at the beginning, so I don't need to say it again, but yeah, we're very grateful, of course, to people from Seeds of Change and Poet, and also the private sector partners, the research organizations that we work with, and the hardworking farmers and village-based advisors, and all of our staff who do the day-to-day work on this project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul and David, for sharing. It's open now for questions, both here and at the plants, so feel free to unmute and ask a question if you have anything you want to know.
Great presentation, guys. Those are some great success stories. Question I have on seed development. How does that play into what you guys do, the new varieties, or how do you go about searching those out and bringing those to the VBAs?
Yeah, we're working with, in the region, we're working with about 20 seed companies. And each company has got different varieties. And so we go to those companies who provide the seeds, and we ask them which variety is best in these particular areas. Okay, so we've got to choose the right variety for the right agroecological zone. Okay, so having done that, we'll ask them for their contribution. You know, whether they're one of our partners, we develop the partnership and say, look, we're working with 90,000 farmers in this particular area. Please provide us with 90,000 small packs, so the farmers can try. And we don't pay for that, so that is an in-kind contribution that we're getting from our partners. And then we ask them to follow up when the demand is there. Please help farmers to access those seeds. We don't believe in giving anything for free. Okay? If you give free things, it's dependency. So all we give is a little starter pack. Okay? We're not allowed to sell those starter packs by law. Okay? We're not allowed to repackage and sell these little things. So it's 50 kernels. Each farmer gets 50 kernels. But that, as you know, all farmers love to experiment. And that little seed gives the farmer to try out on their own farm and see it working for themselves outside the house. And that is agent for change. So it's something that we've been developing for many years. That's maize. Okay, there are other crops there that you've seen there where seed is not available from companies, because they're not profitable to produce. So we've got the common beans, we've got the green grams, the pigeon peas. So for that, we have to go to the research stations. Okay, and then we have to buy those and put them in little packets. But because those are self-pollinated, they're not hybrids, okay, the farmers can save the seeds from their harvest and plant over larger areas. Okay, so that's why companies are not investing in those particular crops, because they're not profitable. Because farmers can save.
And if I can add, I would say some of the companies, they know that the variety will do well in 2 or 3 parts of the country, but they come to us and say, where else can we put this? You know, because we have a bigger presence on the ground than them in some cases. So then we give them advice back and say, you know, in this area, we know this variety will do well because it's very similar to, well, we suspect because it's similar. Now let's try it. And there's very little risk in trying because it's a small amount of seed. And then we learn and we observe what farmers like and they tell us and it changes.
Do the small farmers pay for the service of the VBAs, or is that something you guys offer just to kind of facilitate giving them the seeds or whatever else? How do they engage with the VBAs and your organization?
The farmers, they receive the small packs and the advice for free, as much as we don't like free things. But then the rest, a lot of other things that they're doing, they will pay something for. So to vaccinate a chicken, they will pay 5 cents. And they'll save a chicken that's worth $5, because this disease will kill everything twice a year if you don't vaccinate. So the VBA, if a VBA vaccinates 1,000 chickens, they'll make 5 cents times 1,000, they'll make $50, and about $30 of that will be profit. And they could do that every month, you know. And then they'll grow tree seedlings and in a nursery, and then they'll sell them to farmers. They will sell crop protection inputs and they'll sell seed to farmers. So once the farmers tried the small pack, they'll come back to the VBA and want to buy a larger pack, and then the VBA is selling that and making some profit. With the mangoes, the VBAs are offering a service. They're going around and pruning the mango trees, and they're getting paid 50 cents per mango tree that they prune. You know, so and some of these VBAs are very entrepreneurial and might be earning $100 a month, which in the village is a lot of money from those things, in addition to all the extra money they're getting from their own farm where they're learning.
About the spring plows, are there like 1 or 2 in each village, and then they kind of custom hire out the plowing, or how are those dispersed amongst the countryside?
So with the spring plows, when we first developed it, we gave 1 to each village-based advisor. They cost $6 to make. I think retail price is $6. Sorry, I think it's a bit cheaper to produce, and it's local people producing them. And then now in each village, you might have, in the villages that have really taken it up, you might have 4 or 5 people who own oxen and offer plowing services, and then they will have bought, sometimes they borrow the spring plow attachment from the VBA, sometimes they'll go, and often they'll go out and buy them for the $5 or $6. And that's reasonable because they'll spend $10 sharpening the plow every season anyway. So it's less than the cost of actually, for them to buy the attachment is less than the cost that they would spend on maintaining their plow anyway. So.
So it sounds like one of the keys to success for you guys have been the VBAs. And so I was just wondering if you have one person maybe in charge of 300 people in a village or the VBA for that village, how do you find that person? That's my first question. And once you have found that person, how do you incentivize or manage that person and all of the other ones?
Those are great questions. And finding the right people is the key to success. If you get the wrong person with the right methodology, everything else will fail if you have the wrong people. And I'm sure it's the same in your own business here, if you put the wrong people in place. So we used to have a way of field staff who were quite experienced, who would go around and they would just get a feeling about someone. But as we grew, there was no way that the really experienced people could go around and select 300 people that way or 1,000 people that way. So we developed a process taking the best experience of our best field staff and combining it into one guide. And basically what we do is we call the village-based advisor, the field staff who's starting off a project, and they're told they have to find 15 to 20 new village-based advisors. So they'll go around the local administration of the local government, and there's a chief in each that covers, what they call a chief, an administrative chief covers every 4 or 5 villages. So they'll ask the chief to call a meeting, which happens anyway once or twice a month. Then they'll come and present at the meeting where there might be 50, 100 farmers present, and they'll say, this is the project we want to do. We want to help you improve your production. We're going to work with small packs, and we need to find someone who is going to give out small packs and advice to everyone here. What are the characteristics that you want in that person? And they will, so we include them in naming the characteristics they want. And they will say, they must be honest. If you give them small packs for all of us, we don't want them to plant them all on their own land. They must be honest and trustworthy. Someone else will say, they must be hardworking. They must be sober. They can't be a drunkard. They must be committed to the community. They don't need to be the best farmer. They have to be a hardworking farmer, but they do not need to be the best farmer. So the community will name those characteristics. And then we'll talk about gender. We might say, so should it be a woman or a man? And we encourage them to select women because the women tend to work harder and they're better at working with other women. And they're more honest with the money, is what we find. And then the community, so having identified characteristics, if they miss one, we might prompt, but we try not to. And then the community will say to them, so do you know anyone in this village who has those characteristics? Can you nominate some people? And they might nominate 1 or 2 or 3 people. And then we ask them to vote. Sometimes we ask them to vote, sometimes we don't. But at the moment, I think the voting seems to work quite well. And then, so in this way, the village-based advisor starts off with the trust of the community. Everyone knows that this is the person who we've selected to come and advise us. There's an expectation on them. The administration's been involved, so if there's any problems, the administration can support. And that's critical, and we've had a lot of success with that method. And then the incentive, really, the incentive is threefold. First part of the incentive is, yes, they can earn some money from selling the inputs. But before that, they have to, they are committed. They were selected because they're committed to helping their community. So they feel good about seeing other people in their village not being hungry anymore. And that's a big piece of it. They want to help. And then the third bit is they become important people in their village. So they'll walk around, farmers will call them, you're the chicken doctor, or you're the agriculture officer, or you're the person who helped us. And you can see these often women, about 60% of our VBAs are women. And they'll walk around and people will greet them and ask them questions, and makes you feel good to be consulted. So it's threefold, that they feel good, that people respect them, they get some money from it, and they also have an internal thing about wanting to help.
We probably have time for one or two more questions.
Well, thanks for the great presentation. It's always amazing, I guess, when I see the pictures of the before and after crops and see what a dramatic improvement that's been made. And I guess my question is, given that it visually seems like such a huge improvement, like how much of Africa or of Kenya has been covered by FIPS, and what do you see as the major challenges or roadblocks to trying to roll out this kind of framework to the whole country?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and as I mentioned at the start, in Kenya we've got at least 4 million smallholder farmers, and they're incredibly difficult to reach. At the moment in Kenya we have about 800 village-based advisors, but we need 8,000. So at the moment we are constrained by funding. We're a not-for-profit company, and so we're always on the lookout for new funding to help us to scale out the work. I mean, we've got to a stage here where Dave is doing some fantastic work to scale this up, and with the Seeds of Change Foundation under Mission Grow, we're really showing how we can quickly go to scale. We've now got 260 village-based advisors. When Jeff Broyne came to visit us in January, he said, great guys, the work's good, but really I want to see 55,000. You've only got 258 here, so how are we going to get to 55,000? This is not only needed in Kenya, it's needed in Tanzania. In Tanzania, we've got 1,400 VBAs, but we need 14,000. In Mozambique, we've got 250. We've got 25. We need 25,000. So how are we going to do it? And that's why we're here. This week we're going to enter into discussions to see how can maybe FIPS we can commercialize our activities, okay? So that instead of we're not making money at the moment. We're not allowed to make money. So as we're not for profit company, we're facilitating private sector development. But because we're doing such a good job, we should be earning a commission on those inputs maybe, and see how we can generate income from our work, and then roll that out, use that income to support the further development of the FIPS not-for-profit. So we're coming here for discussions. We don't have all the answers. We want to learn. I mean, this is a real inspiration here this week. I mean, Neil showed us around this morning together with Debbie, gave us a great introduction to your organization, Poet. What a wonderful work you're doing. And you've shown here, I was shocked when I saw first ethanol plant was in 1987. Okay? And now you are, how many ethanol plants now? Well, Neil, you can tell me. But, you've grown something from with good to the #1 company in South Dakota from very small beginnings. So what we need from you is your advice, on how can we take this out now, how can we commercialize this, not just rely on donor funds, which are constrained, okay? How can we commercialize our work and to see how we can generate our own income to help more and more people that are in desperate need of our assistance.
Thank you again so much for sharing. I think we're about out of time, but thanks everyone for joining us. David and Paul, they'll be here for the next couple of days. If you run into them, feel free to talk to them, and they're more than happy to talk about what they're doing. So thank you for sharing what you're doing in Kenya and how Mission Grow is helping to enable the spread of food security in Kenya.